Another day, another Jack Eichel trade update. Now, this time it's coming to us in the form of a Greg Wyshynski article published 2 days ago, so forgive me, this is 2 days old technically, a lot can happen in 2 days, but this article is indeed from August 5th. It is on ESPN and it's titled this: Resetting the Jack Eichel Trade Derby, Team Trade Fits, Health Status, and the Sabres' Next Moves. Now, what exactly does this mean? Well, kind of goes over it in the title, Resetting the Trade Derby over here. This is kind of just an overarching look at the entire Jack Eichel trade scenario and just resetting the terms, reestablishing what teams are in, what teams are out, and the possibilities for Jack Eichel, Buffalo Sabres captain, and just overall really good player. So if you go over to this article, you can take a look at some of the things over here. I will leave a link in the description to what exactly it is it's talking about over here. The standoff between the Sabres and the star center Jack Eichel have progressed past the point of usefulness for all involved. The article goes over pretty much the entire scenario over here from start to finish, which is pretty good for anybody who doesn't know what's going on over here. It starts out by talking about the context around it, Eichel as a player, and the public discourse surrounding the entire situation over here. It talks about the Sabres GM Kevin Adams and the comments that he made, saying that they're in control. Talks about the Eichel camp and how they didn't like these comments and how the surgery is a thing. It goes over the entire surgery, as well as the interviews done with Dr. Chaz Prusmak, the neurosurgeon, who was mentioned in 31 Thoughts. The article talks about the contract, the article talks about Jason Botterill, it talks about the other players in the NHL who are kind of comparables in terms of talent, so McDavid, Matthews, etc. Then it goes over the trade market. I was speaking to an NHL player recently when Eichel's name came up. He's a hell of a player. If Eichel is on my team, I'd be like, F yeah, this is awesome. I don't care how much money he makes, said the player. With that said, you're taking on someone who has a serious neck thing who's making $10 million a year. This is where our update lies as of August 5th. There seems to be more teams out of the Eichel Derby than in at the moment. The LA Kings have moved on. Michael Russo has reported that the Wild were backing out for the moment as the price tag was too high. As well as the dead cap space on the books for Suter and Parise, it makes for an interesting set of mathematics down the line. So there we go, big update right here. Kings out, Wild out currently. The New York Rangers have been sniffing around the trade for a while, but they'll have a rather long wait if they're waiting for the Sabres to retain 50% of Eichel's salary, as one of their media proxies floated recently. Everyone assumes the Golden Knights are still on his trail and could create the necessary cap space by shipping out injured Alex Tuch and winger Riley Smith. The Anaheim Ducks are there, even if they don't want to include Trevor Zegras or Jamie Drysdale in the mix. The Columbus Blue Jackets are reportedly in the mix too. Could the Seattle Kraken get involved with their significant cap space? Although it's a little hard to ante up the prospects when you've only drafted your first ones last month. And so there we go with the little update over here, the reevaluation, I guess, of the Jack Eichel Derby. The Wild, the Kings, and the Rangers technically appears they're out right now. The ones that are in, though, appear to be the Vegas Golden Knights, the Anaheim Ducks, the Blue Jackets, and not even really the Kraken. Wyshynski is just suggesting maybe the Kraken could be involved because they have a lot of cap space, but explicitly stated here in the article, it is Vegas, they're still on his trail. It is Anaheim, they're there. And it's Columbus, they're in the mix too. So when it comes to the way the Jack Eichel Derby has come about, sure, the possibility does remain that any team that is not Vegas, Columbus, or Anaheim gets involved too. That is possible, however, I'm just not really too sure how likely it is because we've been seeing the same teams popping up in these discussions over and over again. Anaheim, Minnesota, New York, Vegas, and all that. So seeing these teams back out does kind of change the conversation for a little bit of a different manner over here. So we're just going to go over the four remaining teams if you want to include Seattle, which I don't really want to, but I guess we'll do it just for the entertainment value about the idea. If you want to go over these three teams, you have to ask yourselves a few questions. Firstly, the trade price. Secondly, what exactly Eichel could do should he go out, get the surgery, recover, and be fine. Which is, it's what everybody hopes for, right? We all want to see this guy do well, right? So for Vegas, I mean, Wyshynski goes out here and he suggests Alex Tuch and Riley Smith, which would account for maybe 2 roster players that are top 6 caliber players. You also have maybe a first-round pick in there. Granted, the Vegas Golden Knights firsts I wouldn't really think would be too valuable in any particular trade situations. And you have some prospects as well. Now, we've noted how the Golden Knights, they trade their prospects away all the gosh darn time. But Peyton Krebs in particular has been that name that apparently the Buffalo Sabres had been requesting, much to the dismay of the Vegas Golden Knights, because of course they just don't want to go ahead and do that. But you know, if you really want to go out there, you want to say, okay, we've made the Cup semifinals 3 times in our 4-year existence. We've made the Stanley Cup finals once. The one time we did not make the 3rd round was when we were eliminated in the 1st round. So we have a 75% chance at making the 3rd round again, just based off of our track record. We need to go out there and we need to do some damage. Let's go out there, get ourselves a first-line center. Screw the future. We want to win now. We're winning today. We're making the finals again. We're doing all this stuff. If you want to go out there and say that, then okay. Cool, you go out there and you make the trade. You say, screw the future. We're going out there and winning today. Maybe it's a done deal that way. Next up, talking about the Seattle Kraken, I guess. Let's just get it out of the way. Seattle, yeah, it's tough, man, because Seattle, they have a team, they have some prospects. They just acquired this team and the prospects earlier on in this offseason. But I'm just going to say this right here on Seattle. I don't know how confident I am in Ron Francis to go out there and start making trades with big-name players. I really want to see one trade go down firstly before we see anything else on that regard. So for Seattle, I mean, look, it's a conversation you can have. Eichel obviously is making a boatload of money, but the Seattle Kraken really did go out there in the expansion draft and set their team up to say, okay, we need to get as much cap space as possible. Like, we're going to pass up on legit talent in this expansion draft just so we can get cap space. And, I mean, that's what they did. They used that cap space to sign some guys, so they have some left, but we'll see how exactly everything goes down. It's all speculative at this point. Moving on to the Anaheim Ducks, though, it's going to be really difficult to make a trade for Jack Eichel without Zegras or Drysdale. That, in my opinion, is tough. I don't doubt that the Anaheim Ducks have good assets aside from Zegras and Drysdale, but you're going to have to give up value to get value, man, and that's kind of the given when it comes to trade scenarios like this. So it would be really interesting to see if the Ducks could pull off a move without one of those 2 top guys, because, I mean, ultimately the goal you want is to have Zegras playing with Eichel, setting up Drysdale on the power play, because having all these guys together in the long-term future, as well as, honestly, the short-term, would be really, really cool to see. I just don't know if it's a Comtois or a Sam Steele, whom they just re-signed, or anybody else that they just acquired into their system that they could just willingly trade out there and say, okay, let's go out there and get Eichel instead. Maybe Mason McTavish is the guy. Who knows? Mason McTavish drafted 3rd overall this season. Have Buffalo get Power, McTavish, and Isaac Rosen out of the 1st round of the 2021 NHL Entry Draft. That sounds like a pretty interesting set of moves if you ask me. As for the Columbus Blue Jackets, well, they're in a pretty interesting spot as well, because the Blue Jackets, I mean, look, they have some pretty good talent on the roster, and Patrick Laine, they re-signed Zach Werenski, they got Adam Boqvist too, but they also have a good chunk of prospects that they drafted out of this year's draft that could be trade bait. You know, I don't want to say they're trade bait because Jarmo Kekalainen has been really adamant in talking about how good these guys are going to be, but Corson Ceulemans, Kent Johnson, as well as, of course, Cole Sillinger, they're all fantastic players, and I think the Blue Jackets had one of the best NHL entry drafts of 2021, so they have a good chunk of talent that the Buffalo Sabres, should you trade Eichel to the Blue Jackets, could scoop out and really just accumulate alongside of the guys that they have in their system as well. So I really like the foundation of youth that the Blue Jackets have had for themselves, not to mention the fact that Adam Boqvist is just a beast as well, who actually produced at the same point per game rate as Seth Jones did this previous season. So there you go. I'm always kind of iffy thinking about it like that because, I mean, you traded away so much to get Seth Jones, including that Adam Boqvist, that it makes things a little bit more interesting when you see just how these two compared in the regular season last year. But either way, talk to me in the comments what you think about the Kraken, the Blue Jackets, the Ducks, as well as the Vegas Golden Knights, as to whether or not you think these teams could go out there, be the last ones standing for the Jack Eichel sweepstakes over here. The Rangers, the Kings, the Wild, all these other teams appears that they're out. Talk to me in the comments if you enjoyed this Visage Rolls 99. and bye.